everyone. Welcome to another episode of Memalytics. Today is going to be a very special episode because we have my good friend TJ here. He is currently in the middle of finishing his book. It should be out very soon, so that's a very exciting project he's been working on, and excited to read and see all the knowledge he has to share with us. But I'll let him introduce himself. TJ, where do you work? And tell us a little bit about some of the projects you've been working on lately.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me on, Memo. It was a delight to meet you this summer out in California when we were doing some recruiting, working together in some recruiting, and serendipitously we started a conversation in a lounge of the hotel that went so deep that time seemed to freeze. We were very much in the moment, and it was certainly a highlight for me of my summer of travel, and I traveled a lot this summer. So yeah, and to see you again, even though I'm over here in New York State in the mountains, is a real joy. So thanks for having me on, first of all. In terms of what I do or what I'm doing now, I'm doing several projects. I coach at a small private liberal arts college in New York State called Bard College, very high academic school. I'm the men's soccer coach here. I also do leadership training at the college for students, for undergraduate students, for some of the deans, for different projects and programs that they have at Bard College. That's one of the businesses that I have, and I do workshops on leadership around the country. I think you had a chance to hear me speak a little bit this summer, right? When we were out in, I believe it was Northern California, where I talk about essentially how to be the best version of yourself, which is something we're all striving to do every day. And that's one of the businesses that I have. Another one I have with a business partner is a soccer business. So the leadership business is called Vision Training for Life. The soccer business is called Vision Training Soccer. The Vision Training Soccer we've been doing for, 4 decades already, my business partner and I, and it's been very interesting. What we do is we domestically around the country, we work with players and coaches on training them how to scan, how to see the field, to improve their vision, their decision making ultimately. And we've done the same around the world. I've gone to 9 countries now where I've actually certified in our own methodology. We call the Vision Training Certification 1, 2, and 3. Been to Guatemala, Costa Rica, Ukraine, Canada, Turks and Caicos, Norway, and another 4 or 5 other countries, which has been very enjoyable to get feedback from coaches and folks around the world that know quite a bit about the game, and several that know more, have forgotten more than I know, but have embraced the ideas of scanning and vision and how to apply that into their own game. So that's the second project that I'm working on consistently. And the third is the book, which you mentioned. The book is actually finished. It's called Eyes Up: Discover Your Full Potential and Form Meaningful Connections Through Subtle Shifts in Perspective. And it's available in Barnes and Nobles. Right now you could go online. It's available in Amazon for pre-order. There'll be an audiobook as well. And the publishing date is February 6th of this upcoming year, 2024. Eyes Up is, I'm sorry?
I said that's amazing.
Thank you. Eyes Up is talks about 7 of the lessons of leadership that I focus on in my workshops. I start with integrity, end with confidence and belief, talk about gratitude and selflessness, communication and listening, innovation, modeling, the power of modeling behavior, nonverbal communication. And it talks about the Vision Training Soccer story, how that emerged, how my lens shifted as a child, an accident that I had when I was a young boy, that when I damaged my eye, and how it got me to look at the world in a different way, and how that it eventually led to me connecting with my business partner, Len Billis, in a serendipitous way, and we formed this company. So it's about refreshing your lens and rewiring your brain, and how it's important to do that. So the book, that's the contents of the book, and the early feedback has been just remarkably positive from my publisher, senior editor, and my agent. And I have eight people that have endorsed it. They're on the cover already, and they've, so it was, first of all, it was a relief to hear people say that they enjoyed the book, because that was not my plan. I'm a storyteller. I have a co-author who is doing all the heavy lifting, who's taken these stories and examples and making them just jump off the pages beautifully. So yeah, so those are the projects that I'm currently involved in.
Wow. No, it's nice to hear someone who's trying to make a big impact in the football world, and I'm sure this book is going to be very enjoyable for everybody, and hopefully several people that watch this go out and buy it and take in the information and be open thinkers and take it in everything that you have to offer.
Thank you, Memo. Appreciate you.
The the biggest thing I wanted to speak to you about was the vision training, because um several coaches have the tendency to zoom in on the action, but only on the execution part of the action. But rarely do coaches ever uh, zoom out and think about, is there a different problem other than just the execution? Because, like you said, uh, it's all about the way we look at things. And I think your story is very interesting. I didn't know about your eye condition and how it caused you to change perception and the way you look at things. So how maybe the way the player saw something sent a signal to the brain, and then the brain signals to the muscle, because the muscles are just a slave to the brain. So if coaches can understand this concept of how the body works, maybe we can help these players a lot more than what we already are.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have a tendency to yes, focus on the player, on the direct action, and not necessarily what's happening off the ball or away from the ball. And our lens, our scope of vision, and as a result, becomes narrow. And if you just do this right now, if I do this, my lens is very narrow. If I open it up, I could see my entire apartment here, right? So if we take those same concepts and ideas, and I break it down to the 5 P's: perceive, process, plan, perform, and persist. The most important is perception. The wider, the brighter, the deeper your perception. So on the football pitch would be 360 degrees, head on a swivel. Right now, I'm looking at what I can see is I can see 180 degrees, right? If I turn a little bit, I add another 90. And if I'm able to take 2 looks or more, then it's 360. So every time I turn my head a little bit, I'm gathering more information, right? Think of a cone, like looking at a cone of light. And the training begins with getting you to look off the ball, So as we're looking off the ball, we're gathering real-time information. Studies and research analytics have shown there's a Norwegian scientist who's an expert in that area that has shown that the top players that connect with the most passes, especially forward passes, are the ones that are taking the most frequent amount of scans in 10 seconds. So those numbers vary. One of the studies in the Premier League is five plus looks every 10 seconds by the very, very best, is one of the benchmarks that the research has shown in terms of studying the analytics of how they move their eyes. I just saw a terrific video just recently, and I got on the phone with one of the partners in the company from Norway that had how many looks Messi took in the final, in the World Cup final, and the number was several hundred. I don't remember the exact number, so I don't want to be quoted by, but it was an astronomical number. And on the goal that he scored, in 10 seconds, he took 7 different looks. 7 different looks. And the video that I saw was every look broken down, every subtle little look, turn of the head that he took. And as he took those looks, there was a processing, right? As you said, to the brain, to the body, brain to the body. And if you watched it real time and we're not looking at that, you'd be watching the play, the ball moving, all the other players. And like, oh my gosh, how did it end up at Messi's foot? And how did it end up in the back of the net? Well, it was not by accident. None of that happened by accident. It happened because of all that early in real time information gathering that he had done prior to it, put him in a position and where he was able to receive that ball and then put it in the back of the net. So it's when you break it down, you watch it from a scientific aspect, you recognize this is a piece of the game that we all should be and must be focusing on as much as other parts of the game, as much as the technical work, the dribbling, the passing, the receiving, the finishing, all those areas and more that we work on the game to become great. It's crucial. It would be the example I often use is if you're a chef and you're going out and you have all these phenomenal ingredients and you go shopping. And here I'm in the Hudson Valley. We have farms here. We have apple farms. We have corn. We have tremendous fresh food here. We have a farm on our campus, actually. We have a barred farm where our students eat fresh vegetables and fruits. So if I was to be have that access to all those ingredients, but I didn't have the right recipe, those ingredients would not pop, would not be as tasty. But with the right recipe, and the recipe has a recipe. The recipe is gathering information, right? How do we collectively take all these delicious ingredients and foods and vegetables and put them together? Well, that's the same analogy as on the soccer pitch, is that I could be great at dribbling, at passing, receiving, all these other elements could be really, really good at, or one or two. But if I'm not cognizant and aware of how to apply them real time in situations, then I don't reach my full potential.
I love that metaphor, the one with the chef metaphor you just mentioned, and I think gives a clear image for everybody that's listening right now, and how important it is about just collecting the right information, because well, first, it's not about collecting information for the sake of collecting information, because that was going to be my follow-up question, because we can tell players to scan, so they just do the head movement, they just move the neck just to appease the coach. But how can we ensure that they're getting the right ingredients, that they have a recipe to follow, so the recipe could also be a metaphor for something else that you use within your team? Okay, guys, this is what we're trying to accomplish today. Here's the recipe. And now, hey, it's your job to go and collect the right ingredients, so then we can make a beautiful meal, which essentially should be a goal or a win.
You're providing me with really good materials and very, very topical, because I just had a training session. I just got back home from a training session.
Oh, wow.
And I'll use a real time half hour ago example.
Beautiful.
This week we were rained out and we have not played in over a week, in about a week in 2 days, because we had two strange weather occurrences, pardon me. So yesterday we played 11v11, first time in 8 days, and defended well, moved the ball well laterally. We lacked depth. We had good width, but lacked depth, and our decision, our choices were too predictable, where we were trying to break lines and connect and move the ball laterally and break lines, as opposed to using our depth and having, in our system, we played a 3-5-2 the other day, and we played various systems. We used a 3-5-2, where we weren't stretching out the opponent at all, and we weren't using long balls to play on the other side and to switch from a wing, or really even attack to the wing. So today I designed a that was our focal point, was our session, was we did some technical training, a little bit of like a diamond pass, which many coaches have done before. Basically a diamond, 2 cones about 20 meters away and 2 on the sides, and you have 6 to 8 players, and you're combining right foot inside to the other cone, and you just follow to the neck, follow your pass, right? I think most coaches have done this before, some version of it, right? And a couple combination, then breaking lines within that, playing to the player on the cone, plays it back, and then breaking lines to the furthest player. Anyway, and then we played a little over the hill, over the river, keep away game, a 6v3 versus 3 on one side, combining, changing it in the air, but under pressure, having to get out of pressure in tight space, but still serve a ball 20 to 25 meters out of pressure, under big time pressure to the other side, right? Mm-hmm. And then we played a 7v7 match, half field 7v7 match, 5 minutes. We have, I do a lot of competitive round robin where we do things for points. And I collect points from players throughout the whole season. And the top 10 point winners, we take them out to lunch for a meal, or a really, really nice meal at the end. All right. So we're to make it even more fun, a little fun. But the objective was, okay, how do we get some flank play and how do we get service from the flanks? So you could just say, okay, there's, we have 2 channels and our width on both sides. You could say you have to get into a channel if you have to before you attack. Well, the challenge with saying you have to, which I've been taught through coaching schools and my background. See where I have an A license. I have a United States national premier license as well. So I have licenses from both the USSF and also from the United Soccer Coaches. So great coaches I've had, by the way. But sometimes they say, oh, you must do this, you must go here first, right? Before you can go to goal. I struggle with those must rules because they don't, then you're looking to force things, and those events may not happen. So instead, I do a reward system. So play football, regular football. If you can combine and finish, great. You score and you hold the team and you win 1-0. But I had caveats. So the caveat was we had channels on both sides, no restrictions whatsoever, no touch restrictions, no play area restrictions. But if a ball emerges from one of the 2 channels, any channel, in the air, or a driven ball on the ground, or taking it, bring it back, and a goal originates from that, you get a bonus point. There's a bonus. And I also add that 1-touch goals are also bonus points. So whenever I play small-sided games or big games, I always give a bonus point for a 1-touch goal. Any idea why I would, a little bit about me, any idea why I would give a bonus for a 1-touch goal? What must a player be doing to be able to hit a 1-touch goal with his eyes?
They must already perceive, communicate with the game situation, and arrive at the right position, moment, direction, and speed to then be able to execute this finish, because it's a very tough finish.
And also be seeing where the goalkeeper lies, and where the opening is. Mm-hmm. And also, it's the hardest save for a goalkeeper is saving a 1-touch shot, mm-hmm. because the ball is moving, and when the ball moves, the goalkeeper is moving, changing their position in the goal. So a ball is arriving from any distance, and you hit it 1 touch, the goalkeeper is moving at mm-hmm. that point, or that second is attempting to stop. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, all you need to do is hit it a little bit away from the keeper where he was coming from, and that's going to be in the back of the net. When you stop the ball and look up, the keeper is set, and now he or she has a much easier time of making a save. So it's a vision component as well. Ball comes from the flank. I'm looking. I see where the keeper is. Ball comes, 1 touch into the opening. Thanks for coming. So that was our carrot reward today. Was that you could go in, you could break lines from the center, or win the ball and press and go to goal. There's no restrictions that you can or you can't do that. But if you're able to change the point of attack and to use width and get a service, well, these are 5-minute games we played. These are very intense 5-minute games. We play double round robin. The first match, both teams had 3-point goals. Wow. Both teams. One in the air, a long driven ball that was a header. The other combination into the striker. First time knocks it down to the midfielder, plays it to the winger. He drives it on the ground. First post run by the striker. Goal, thanks for coming. First time goal. So again, application of the things we talked about, and now players have incentive and they're looking to solve those problems. So that's very, very much in line with your question.
Yeah, no, it's a good point that you made when coaches say, okay, we're gonna play this activity, and then but you have to do this before you can score. And because obviously we ideally we think about what we want to get out of the session, but then sometimes as coaches we want to accomplish something so bad that we forget about the potential consequences of how we present the activity, or how the activity is structured, and now the negative consequences. Now you're limiting the development of the player, because now you're giving them, like you gave the example, boom, this, when there's a better option on this side of their vision. So I think that's a very strong point for a lot of coaches to take note of. And also, I want to go back to the 5 Ps. Can you please, do you mind if you can repeat the 5 Ps again?
Yeah, absolutely. The 5 Ps, let me just fill my water up again.
Yeah.
They are perceive, process, plan, perform, and persist. The most important is the first and the last, perception. The wider, the brighter, the deeper your perception is.
Mhm.
Okay, your ability to process is abstract, right? Process data, plan what you're thinking of based on the first two. Perceive, process, plan, perform, and persist is the habit loop. When you're persistent about something, it becomes automatic. You don't have to think about it, right? When I'm persistent about being perceptive, I'm not just focused on the ball or on the player.
Mhm.
I've already trained myself to a habit of gathering real-time information and seeing. When I'm persistent about being perceptive, I'm gathering real-time information. I'm not waiting for you to tell me or someone tell me, man on, turn, shoot, you're open, which is noise,
Mhm.
which is noise. You know, athletes perform at their highest level when they're in the flow state, right? You're aware of the flow state. We talked about that when we were out in California. Every sport, artists, dancers, musicians, writers, when you're in a flow state, everything slows down. It becomes automatic.
Mhm.
You perform at your best. You don't have to think about it. Noise destroys flow. So shouting, yelling,
Mhm.
clapping destroys flow. So the 5 Ps are essential part of what we are focused on in vision training. When we did this warm-up technical exercise today in a diamond with 8 players, and we had 2 balls passing one after the other, I reminded the players, make sure you're scanning. There's no defender there, but make sure that you're scanning. Because in training, if you're not looking and scanning and training, when the match comes, you're not going to be looking and scanning when the match comes. So that first P, that perception, even though there's nobody on them, ball comes, they're taking pictures, they're looking, and now we move into the 6v3 over the river game, and players are taking little looks, gathering real-time information, taking touches away from pressure. And then the third stage was looking 30 meters, 35 meters, and driving balls, because that first P is now, nobody's telling them, I'm open, pass the ball, look at long. That's, I use the example, that's right, like riding a bike with training wheels.
Mhm.
You know, if you're waiting for somebody to tell you what to do when you have the ball, it's too slow. The way our brain processes information, the fastest way is visually. The second fastest is emotionally. When we meet someone, right away we get an impression. The third fastest or slowest way is verbally, is the auditory, is the third slowest way. The speed of sound travels approximately 186,000 miles a second. The speed of sound travels only 1,000 feet a second.
Mm.
So if I'm yelling at someone, man on turn, giving them verbal information, it's too slow.
Mhm.
It's too slow. And so part of our training and methodology is players are not calling for the ball. They're not clapping. They're not drawing attention to themselves and not distracting the player on the ball. Why? Because all the players are conditioned to be scanning and seeing multiple options all the time. Right? The role of a supporting player on the attack. So if I'm supporting you on the attack and you have the ball, is my role is to first see where I should go to support you.
Mhm.
If I'm the first attacker or the second attacker, wherever I am in relationship to you, my responsibility is not to tell you what to do. Okay, my responsibility is to support you and to be in a position where you can best play me the ball. And then my secondary responsibility is to start, as I'm doing that, is to plan what are the choices I'm going to do once the ball arrives, but to have that real time information then. If I'm communicating to you what to do, I'm not I'm not doing my job. I'm just coaching you. And now by the time the ball comes to me, it's too late. It's too late already. Now, if I start looking after the ball arrives to me, it's too late. All the top players in football and all the top players in other team sports, if you watch hockey, you watch basketball, all the top players are consistently the quarterbacks, right? The quarterback from Tampa Bay that recently retired, right? He was what 43 years old. New England, won how many Super Bowls, right? Well, at 43 years old, the reason he was so effective is because his ability to process real-time information and act on that information and make those informed decisions. So when you experience that and when you see it yourself and experience it, it's a game changer. When we do training sessions with players, Memo, uh, in a training session, it is common for players to get 10 to 20% better in one session, an hour and a half, permanently, just by expanding their vision. It's common, and some players even more than that. So that's the uh, common outtake out of using your vision and scanning and incorporating the 5 Ps.
Yeah, yeah. And again, for everyone, the 5 Ps are perceive, process, plan, perform, and persist. And obviously, perceiving is taking in information. Then your brain has to then process that information. Then your brain has to decide what the best thing to do based on that information. And then you perform. So you execute your action. And then persist, from what I understand, is keep maintaining, keep doing it. Don't stop.
Don't stop.
Yeah.
And when you persist, it's like grinding. Being a grinder. We talk about in terms of those people that grind that or get ahead in life, get ahead in what they do. When you're persistent about it, you don't have to think. It becomes an automatic.
Mhm.
When you're persistent about being perceptive, then you're gathering real time information on the pitch. And when you gather real time information, you're learning, right? And when you're learning, you're moving forward because you're making decisions based on what's real time information and not what other people are seeing from their point of view.
Yeah, because you're taking the player from doing this specific way of behaving. So you're taking this behavior that may be unnatural for players. So first they have to consciously do it. So they're thinking about moving their head side to side. They're thinking about looking and trying to consciously see what am I looking for. But then over a period of time, like you said, it becomes natural behavior, instinctual. So then it becomes an unconscious process in the brain just because of the way you've developed the neural networks in the brain. So again, that goes to the rewiring the brain that you said earlier.
I'll give you a great example of that. My daughter's 24 years old. She played football. Um, at Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania, and she was a good player. She played club ball for PDA in New Jersey, which is one of the top women's clubs in the country. Carly Lloyd came out of there, and several women, recent and past national team players, came out of that club in New Jersey. She had some terrific training, and naturally, she attended my camps, and she even helped me coach. So it became automatic for her. In January, we were in Uruguay, she and I on holiday, and we brought a ball out on the beach, and we're passing the ball in the sand in bare feet. I touched the ball to her. What is she doing? She's scanning. She's scanning. There's no football match out here. We're not playing 4v4, 5v5 on the beach, but we're just knocking the ball back and forth. But at 24 years old, for her, it's automatic to be looking so that she doesn't get picked off, so that she knows what's going on.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
that is. I wonder if she was. Did you point that out to her and say, "Hey, were you doing that consciously or unconsciously, or did you notice that you were even
She
doing
does. She does it subconsciously. We were in Oregon the year before on the beach, and we were doing the same thing, and she was looking. She does it all the time. When she was younger, we would go on the tennis courts and knock the ball around, or she would hit the ball against a wall, and as the ball is coming off the wall, she would already train herself as if it's a pass from the wall, and she'd be scanning and looking all the time. And as a result, she was able to perform at a very high level. Unfortunately, she was cursed with my genes and her mom's genes, which are slow twitch running muscles. So she wasn't the fastest on the pitch, but she had the brains because she had real-time information. She was gathering more information than others. So she was able to succeed and survive and succeed against very, very high-level players that went on to Penn State and Rutgers, and other All-Americans that went on very high level because of her ability to play within that system, within her ability, and play and make informed decisions. So yeah.
That's incredible. That's a great example because a lot of people who go scouting or even these tryouts that teams do, always the only thing that's being recruited that it seems is bigger, faster, stronger. But then that only gets you so far. You don't have those players who can unlock a very difficult opponent.
Well, let's look at the U.S. Let's look at the last World Cup just now, and those answers. The rest of the world is providing us with the solutions that we're missing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the world has caught up to the women in our country, and they've unfortunately surpassed our level because of the same type of training that they've received in Spain and in Germany and around the world. On the men's side, the women are experiencing as well. And yeah, it was very clear. And I remember watching one of the women's games, and it was very clear that the vision part was massively lacking in our players, where we went to go on more than a few occasions without scanning, without gathering and taking pictures. And as a result, some of the choices of shooting and finishing that we took were limited to this and not to that. And it's not their fault. When I talk about vision and players, it's our fault. It's not the players' fault. It's my fault. It's my fault because I've been doing this for 4 decades, and I've traveled around the world, like I share with you, and I've shared it with coaches that have forgotten much more than I know about the game and that are doing it. And in our country, people are talking certainly much more about vision and much more about scanning than they did 40 years ago when we first started it. But it needs to be part of every single training session. If you're running a training session, you need to incorporate vision into everything you're doing. So vision training is not like you throw out receiving or finishing or dribbling or passing or defending. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to work on vision. Vision is something that you incorporate in everything that you do. in scanning, because vision is empowering the player. So our game is about empowering players. We don't joystick coach, right? It's not like American football where they have, 6 assistant coaches sitting up in the stands, on headphones. They have the quarterback and the offensive coordinator who's telling the $40 million a year quarterback what play he should be running, right? That's not our sport. Football is free flowing, problem solving, multiple choices and decisions. So since our sport is about that, it's essential that we empower and equip our players to be able to make informed, effective decisions. That's a responsibility. If we start looking at the game like that, then our players are able to answer and fix problems on their own instead of us having to fix it for them. And my book, is vision training for life, where having done these workshops for so many decades, coaches would say to me, "Oh, TJ, that's life. What you're talking about? What do you mean? What you're talking about? Being your eyes open, being open to information." I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. So the more and more I heard about that, this is the vision training on the pitch is vision training for life. That's how I started my workshops on leadership, and that's essentially how this book emerged, which I'm still not sure how this whole thing happened, or I don't believe it. I know how it happened, but it's kind of remarkable.
Yeah, we're glad it happened because this is a lot of good information for coaches that maybe it's their first time even listening to a concept like this, and now maybe the penny is dropping for them, because a lot of the times, and I think it's a beautiful example that you gave, or with the Women's World Cup, but also with what you said just now, how oftentimes as coaches we use the game to evaluate the players. So like all of the players' faults, and yeah, but we as coaches, it's our faults because we condition those brains on the pitch in a way that they performed in that way. And look, the game is not an evaluation of the player. The game should be an evaluation of your process as a coach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if there is a problem on the pitch, you need to reevaluate your process and see where you went wrong in the process so you can fix it the following week. And I think that's very valuable for coaches to reflect on. Yeah, not zooming into the player, but zooming out and reflecting on themselves for self-evaluation, because I don't think we do that enough as coaches. And
Here's a way I agree with you wholeheartedly. Here's a way that I do that for myself to make sure that I'm on point, or that I am gathering good information. I have a leadership council on my team, and we have people have captains. They have different ways of choosing their leaders, of course. So we have a leadership council on our team, and we meet once a week. The leadership council is made up of 2 captains that the team has chosen, and I'm involved in choosing as well, and my assistant, and a representative of each of the classes. So junior, sophomore, first year class. Since we have such a large first year class, we have 13 first year players. I have 2 representatives from that class. And we just had our first weekly meeting actually last night, because games were canceled and preseason, and I've met with the players individually already. So there was no reason for us until this point to meet, and we'll be meeting weekly. So we had a meeting last night, and part of that meeting is, how the training sessions going, boys? Is it effective? Is it making sense? Anything you want to change? And I'm empowering them. I'm giving them a voice, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are carrying these things out. And if it's something needs to change or doesn't feel right, I need to hear about it and find out how we can make it work. And we had that feedback. One of the finishing exercises we do is one we call it 11, service from the flank, top of the box. And they said, yeah, there's a little bit of standing around in that, and some of it is finishing from the top of the box. Can we change it a little bit, maybe make it a little bit more dynamic? Yeah. So, right. Like coach, like how we do the technical work at the beginning, because in the past I've usually done a little warm up. They've done rondo, they've warmed up, and then we get into the session. The team has preferred the boys to do a little bit of technical work. They want to get their feet warm and they're more comfortable. So this year I introduced some technical work for anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15 at the beginning of the sessions, because the players want that. In the past few years, I haven't. We've gotten right into sessions quicker, much quicker. But this group wants to, they feel more comfortable doing that. So it's important for me to listen to them. And we've done that. We did that today, that session I mentioned to you, and the performance was very high. So part of growth as a leader is listening to the people you're leading, empowering them, and making sure that there's a partnership and there's synergy, regardless of age. I mean, I'm 3 times their age,
Mhm.
but I'm learning every single day. I haven't stopped learning. I haven't stopped growing.
That's a incredible way how you uh use the players for not only your own benefit, but also for the team's benefit. Because, like you said, you're empowering them, you're giving them a voice, you're involving them in the process. And it's funny because if you ask the players, they know exactly what they feel like they're missing. And all it is as coaches is just to ask a simple question, and they can tell you right away what they're feeling. And now that only empowers you more as a coach, because now you can fulfill their needs and fill the gaps in on where they're lacking in their development. So listening is probably the biggest tool a coach could ever use. That's no, but the council idea is a fantastic idea. I think multiple programs should have that. And even if you're in a youth team environment, you could potentially still do this a similar concept with
Yes.
players that you trust or the players that are respected most in the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then just going quickly to the warm up. Yeah, like you said, as we would like to get right into the session and not waste time, but if the players feel like they need something, you have to compromise a little bit because the dopamine hit in the brain will only help drive the session even more.
Absolutely. And they came up to me after I did that, like, Coach, this is great. This is really what we want. I was like, bingo, fantastic.
Mhm. Yeah, and then
It's,
also if sorry to
no, 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 go, 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 go. Yeah.
I had a similar conversation with two of my buddies, separate conversations, and even if you know as a coach it may not be the right idea, but the players still want it, you still should do it. But
Mm-hmm.
then if it negatively impacts the performance, then you kind of have to reference coach them and say, hey, that previous activity that you so desperately wanted, did it help you here? Or are you now performing unrealistic actions now that aren't
Mm-hmm.
transferring well enough? So can we
Mm-hmm.
do this better? Let's design something better. Still keeping
Beautiful.
that process.
Beautiful. Yes, beautiful. So allowing them. And one of the really key important parts of growth and success is failure,
Mhm.
is failing, failing and having things not work out. We've other people have said this. A lot of people, throughout time. I had a great strength and conditioning coach who was actually a student of mine, first at LIU Brooklyn, who ended up in 2004, was a gold medalist for the Jamaican national team in Athens at the Olympics. He was a sprinter. And Richard James came back and was our strength and conditioning coach. And he would say, you win or you learn.
Mhm.
You
Yes.
win or you learn. You don't win or lose, you learn, and you're learning. And even when you win, you learn too. By the way, not just you win and you don't learn. And your example that you just shared was great. Like, okay, give them the platform, give them a voice, give them an opportunity, and if it works, great. That's even better because now they're partners with you, right? So this is a partnership. And if it doesn't work, let's design something that now makes sense. And let's collaborate. Or this is an idea that I had. Let's tried this idea, and I think this will work. And so now it's a partnership, but it's also learning that one is you respected me, you gave me a voice, and it didn't work out, but let's see another solution. So
Yeah.
that's you get buy-in. When you have that kind of relationship with players in your team, you get buy-in. Because why? Because they know that you care. When your players in your team know that you genuinely care about them and that you're transformative, not transactional.
Mhm.
What are you going to do for me? Transformative. How can I support you? What can I do for you?
Mhm.
There's no limit to what can be done. There's no limit to how you could succeed. When you're leading with the heart, when you're leading from love, there's no limits.
Yeah. And I'm glad you defined both those words, transactional and transformative, because oftentimes we see a transactional coaching style. You do this for me and go do it. So then we develop robots, which is why we have so many coach dependent players who cannot think for themselves and decide make very good decisions. And so then this is why we are missing those creative players that can make the big time solution, find that big time solution in the game that could win you 1-0 or get you back in the game.
Those
Yeah.
those same players, if they're not given an opportunity, have the same issue in life.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's telling them what to do all the time and they have to follow someone else's direction, when it's time for them to be on their own in their life and make decisions, those folks tend to struggle because they've never given that opportunity or platform to problem solve and to figure things out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It goes to I like saying we get curling parents or curling coaches, like the sport where you
Mm-hmm.
the ice and the stone goes, and never allow the child to go through a bumpy road and face adversity,
Correct.
and not allowing them to experience these failures. We just take we take the learning experience away from them to protect the child because we don't want them to experience failure. But
Mm-hmm.
then we get a child with a weaker brain that cannot deal with adversity in the future.
Yes. Yes. And yes.
Yeah. So, I guess like we just spoke about, give these players an opportunity. And going back a little bit to this, to these to making changes within the team,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the times coaches want to make changes in the team almost immediately, but it doesn't make sense to the players if there's no problem. So I don't know if you know the story about Goose Hinning when he was a South Korean coach for the 2002 World Cup, leading up to the 2002 World Cup.
Okay. Please
He
share.
yeah, he was he just got hired, and then the South Koreans had an aging squad, and Goose Hinning knew this, and he he wanted to make he knew he couldn't make the roster changes because he wanted to bring in younger players. But culturally, he understood South Korean culture. They're very respectful of their elders. So had he done this, they would have blew him. They would have destroyed him in the media, and not have that buy-in, like you spoke about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So what he did was schedule very difficult friendly matches. I forget who, probably France, Brazil, and someone else. And they lost 5-0 each game. So then his nickname became Mr. 5-0 in the media. But this showed put a mirror in front of the faces of everyone in South Korea that hey, maybe these players are too old to compete at this level. So now he was able to make the changes he wanted because
Mm-hmm.
he created a situation and the incompetencies showed,
Mm-hmm.
and now he can make a change that makes sense for everybody.
Mm. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
That's a great example of having a vision and a plan. Mm.
absolutely. Him perceiving what's going on with the team,
Mm-hmm.
the federation, the squad, and having all that process in his brain, create a plan. So he decided to do a situation. So it spoke for itself instead of just talking about it. Because it's like, hey, what is this guy talking about?
Right, right.
Uh, no, but he let them experience it, let them go through the bumpy road, even
Mm.
though that means sacrificing his own reputation as a coach. Because then eventually he got what he wanted after all.
Massive growth, right?
Yeah, he
Right.
had a very good World Cup.
Massive growth. So the failure, learning from it, the struggle,
Mhm.
you know, struggle is an opportunity for growth.
Yes.
And he was able to find the growth and convince the rest of them. That's a phenomenal example.
Mhm. But just now going back to these players who we need to improve their ability to make better decisions and communicate better on the pitch. So we don't want to create these robots on the pitch. So because the game is player driven. Once the game starts, the coach has very little impact because
Mm-hmm.
now it's up to the player. So we need to condition their brains the best possible way. And you mentioned earlier about verbal and nonverbal and how verbal could be very negative.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to talk more in detail about that because like we mentioned briefly, yeah, the shouting
Mm-hmm.
and how that could disturb the flow.
Mm-hmm.
And it also this verbal versus nonverbal. When you're verbal, and you mentioned this when we first met in in SoCal. Was it SoCal or NorCal?
NorCal.
NorCal. We met in NorCal. Um, how you can become more predictable to the opposing team because they
Yeah.
also have ears.
Yeah. Yeah. When I when I when I do training sessions on vision training with players all over the world, I now when I begin a session, I say that we, a big part of this training is not shouting for the ball, not calling for the ball. And I would suggest that that's probably the first time in their career that they've ever heard that, unless someone has been certified by a course that I took, um, or taken our license. We now have an online course that's going to be uh, available in actually about 2 weeks. Or I'm sure others, I'm not the only one in the world that's professing these ideas, but it's more than likely in America that they've never heard this before. But what I say is I don't give them opportunity to ask them the question about which is better, which is worse. I say right away, what's wrong with shouting for the ball? This is how I open up the discussion with the players. These are not my players, by the way. Immediately, every player has reasons why it's a problem shouting for the ball. Immediately, without me coaching them or giving them any insight.
Mm-hmm.
So I go, what's the problem? Right away, you're giving away your position. There you go. You're giving away your position. I traveled to 9 different states this summer: Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Boston, working with, speaking to upwards of 2,000 young people and working with probably several hundred out of that group. And every time I spoke, not everyone, there were these comments, immediate comments from the players before we started the training memo, before we started the training. Well, yeah, because if when I call for the ball, I just alerted the opponent that of my positioning. Yeah, you just did, right? And I asked him, I said, raise your hand if you've ever been in a match where you're covering a player, he shouts for the ball, the teammate of the opposing player is conditioned to play the ball when someone shouts, because some coaches are telling you shout really loud, and when they shout really loud, give them the ball. Right? That's not uncommon, by the way. Where shout for the ball, ask for the ball, demand the ball. And I said, raise your hand when you've been in a situation where the player you're covering shouts and demands the ball. The teammate is conditioned and brainwashed to pass it. They don't even see you, and you step up and you win it. Every player raises their hand. Every player raises their hand. I said, well, if you learn vision training, that will never happen to you. You will never lose the ball by shouting for the ball. You will never give the opponent that. And I also sometimes do a little joke. Because the only time I want you to shout for the ball is if the other team is hearing impaired, if they're deaf. That's the only time. And there's only one college team, which is Gallaudet, that are hearing impaired, and they're the ones that go ahead and shout for the ball. But everyone else, you're giving away position. So that's the number one. And you know that as a footballer yourself. We talked about that up in that hotel lobby, that we've all experienced that. We've all experienced that because coaches are saying, shout, yell for the ball, yell for the ball. Or why didn't you yell for the ball? Why don't you tell me? Right? Well, by the way, why are players shouting for the ball? It's pretty simple, because the player on the ball is doing what?
Yeah.
Where they're looking.
Down.
They're looking down. Why are they looking down? Because we train them to look down.
Mhm.
Because we don't train them to look up.
Yeah.
So it's not the player's fault that they're shouting for the ball, because they're not looking around.
Yeah.
Because we're not coaching them to look around. There's a reason why all this is happening. It's not a mystery or surprise. If you train your players to look around and not to shout for the ball, they're going to see 2, 3, 4, 5 options.
Mhm.
Could you imagine the 2015 World Cup when Carly Lloyd had the ball in midfield against the Japanese?
Yeah.
She looked up. Could you imagine if a teammate shouted her name before she looked and shipped and drove the ball over the Japanese keeper's head from 52 yards, which many have said is the best goal in U.S. World Cup history? Imagine if teammates were shouting her name at that time.
Yeah.
Guess what? Since birth, if somebody shouts our name, what do? We look.
Mhm.
Who shouted your name, right? So if as a coach and you're listening to this and you're having your players shout for the ball, call for the ball, you're limiting their independent thinking, their creativity, and their ability to problem solve. You're actually limiting that.
Mhm.
And I will suggest that you will have a very, very difficult time developing independent thinkers and creative players, because they are relying on other people. And if in our life I have to rely on others to do work, to do my job specifically, I'm not going to succeed as a football coach, as a father, as an entrepreneur, as a manager. So our responsibility is to empower them, is by empowering them to allow them to see things, to make mistakes, and make those corrections when they see and they make a poor choice, or ask them what their options were, and then have them come up with those solutions, or help them come up with those solutions, which is guided discovery, right? So that's really our job. And then when that happens, then the players are solving those problems real time, and the game and their performance consistently goes up, and they are operating in the flow state
Mhm.
and not in a state of an overload of information. Man on, turn. I I watched. I was at a showcase a year ago, and one of the top American college coaches, who's also a friend of mine, was coaching, and it was filmed. So this is a recruiting showcase, like the one that we were at. And a player, a winger on the left side, on our side, the ball was delivered from the left back, and the coach shouts to the winger to turn. Right? So the winger turns without looking. Who do you think he turns into?
Direct opponent.
Mm-hmm. He does what the coach told him to do. This very successful coach, by the way, decades, very successful coach. And he loses the ball. And the defender takes it down the wing, looks up, serves it, boom, header, goal. How is that for film for that player? Could you imagine we're recruiting that player, you and I are watching that player going, I'm not gonna recruit that player.
Yeah.
He's turning into pressure without looking. No, thank you. And this is a very noted, well-known, successful national college coach that's giving him the wrong information. That's a small example of why it's crucially important to get players to scan and look, and to not joystick coach.
Yeah.
So I use that example on occasion, and of course I'm going to protect his name. I would never embarrass someone, but that's a clear example. And this is a top coach. So if one of our top coaches in America is doing this, guess what? Everybody watching is doing the same thing.
Oh yeah,
So we need to change it's crucial for us to make a paradigm shift.
absolutely.
Make a paradigm shift right now. You go out there and you apply these ideas and you change permanently. You change the way your players play. You empower them. Their performance rises, and you become a much better coach by doing less.
Uh, this the last few minutes of you speaking was was like opening or just like a holy grail or opening the door to sunshine. It shined like a big bright light on a big problem that we're currently seeing in the US. And coaches need to be reminded that their job is to top down guide development and not top down control development, because the players are responsible for their own development and we're only here to help. Because as a coach, you cannot by definition improve a player. You can help them improve, but at the end of the day, it's the player's responsibility to improve themselves. And so I think that probably eases the burden on coaches, because also, you know what? Now that I reflect, maybe it's not the coach's fault either, because what do we see on TV every week? We talk about high level coaches who cannot be quiet on the sideline and reflect. What do we see every week in the Premier League, in the Bundesliga, in La Liga? Coaches standing up and shouting, going crazy, falling to their knees, shouting, arguing with the referee, with the other manager.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? We res well, not everyone in general, but especially the younger coaches that are just getting into their coaching career, they idolize these coaches
Of course.
and they copy the behavior. And then it affects the children.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to also reflect and say, is this the right behavior that he should be having in this moment? How am I behaving as a coach? How is it influencing the players I'm working with? Because there are so many emotional coaches out there. And sit down, reflect, and let the players play, because you're not giving them any more help. The game is already complex enough, and then now you add the angry coach on the sideline. Yeah, now you're disturbing the flow even more, and now these players can't develop.
Yes, exactly. What you're doing is you're distracting them. You're taking the attention away from them.
Mm-hmm.
In
Yeah.
our last game at LIU, I had coached at Long Island University for 20 years, and we were playing in our final championship game on our pitch. It's actually I talk about it in the book Eyes Up, and we were up at that time 2-0, and we were moving the ball in the back quite comfortably. The opponent was sitting in, and my left back was Marius Kuss from Norway, from Oslo, and he was terrific. And his uncle was the Norwegian four-time gold medalist in Lillehammer, Kuss, and he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated when the Lillehammer Games in 1994 in speed skating. And what happened was he got the ball, and I looked, and he was on my side, and I said to him, I said, Marius, look at Joey. Right? And he gets the ball and he swings it back to the other side. And he turns to me, he says, Coach, I saw Joey before, way before. I'm waiting for the right moment to play the ball. I got so excited. This is our last match we're ever playing on this pitch. And the story of that last season is in Eyes Up. It's an incredible story of courage of these players, knowing this is the last match last season ever on this pitch. But he looked at me and he says that to me, and I realized here I am, the practitioner of vision training, over coaching and giving information to my left back who had already seen and scanned and had processed this information. So it was a great reminder for me to keep my mouth shut and trust the players that they've trained and they could make the best decisions on their own.
And that's incredible. Look how well you conditioned that brain. Very strong brain from that player to keep thinking action and
Mm-hmm.
block out this noise.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was gonna mention that earlier because it popped up in my brain when you mentioned the stimulus response of shouting
Yes.
someone's name.
Yes.
Like, well, who's shouting my name? The way uh, thoughts are activated, conscious thoughts are activated in the brain. If there's a threshold, maybe 50% is the threshold, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
get this signal to 51. And there's always constant battle between different signals, and maybe the right decision is about to reach 51, and then boom, that quick stimulus response of shouting, boom, causes the wrong decision. And it's when you think about it with that, you're like, oh, you're like, you start to reflect like, oh, and all these memories pop up like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have yelled that. Because then now
Mm-hmm.
you understand how the brain works, because it's always a constant battle between situation action patterns or emotion, emotional fire powers, or even fear or pain. But you have to allow these players to just let them activate on their own and not stimulate the activation process, not naturally. So no, that was a very good point. And I think this is why in the US, a lot of people say athletes because we develop like the technique and everything, and then the head is down all the time. And but yeah, remember we're developing players for a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be looking,
Mm-hmm.
scanning,
Mm-hmm.
communicating, eye contact,
Mm-hmm.
everything. Even with the opponent, maybe with the opponent, the opposing team, you avoid communicating, so you
Mm-hmm.
stay predictable.
Mm-hmm.
But you only do that if you see what's going on. So yeah, people that say athletes aren't using the correct terminology, and reminded that player is an integral part of the team,
Mm-hmm.
and the player is not above team level, but team is always above the individual.
Mm-hmm.
This is the context the individual works in. So you have to coach from here to influence this. A lot of people start down here to try to influence this, which is a
Yes,
hierarchical issue.
very much so. Very, very much so. You remind me of a lot of different experiences I've had throughout my career. And when the light bulb goes on for coaches, and I've been very fortunate to have had conversations with some really interesting, successful coaches about it who've been very open. Jurgen Klinsmann, Paulo Anchopi, Klinsmann, of course, from Germany, the national team, and coach of the German national team, coach of the U.S. team. Paulo Anchopi, who was coach of the Costa Rican national team and was a noted, well-known top player for them and played for Man City. And having conversations with these deep thinkers and successful players, top players, they understood vision training. They understood the value and the importance of how it changes the game. Yeah.
Yeah, no, good point. And final question: with all of these stimuli going around the player, because it's 21 potential players, these players are communicating with every time while they're on the pitch. Um, how can a player, yeah, create? How can we help create selective perception for these players? Because not all information is good information.
One more, can you repeat that, the
Yeah.
question again?
So, um, when you're playing football, there's hundreds, thousands of things going on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Referee influence, rules of
Mm-hmm.
the game, line, et cetera, et cetera. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when the player is scanning and looking and perceiving information, and sometimes I'm are you familiar with the jam study by Sheena Sheena I think I'm gonna butcher her name, Inigar and Mark Lepper.
I'm not.
Okay. So
Yeah.
they did a jam study where they brought people, they had like 100 jams, 50 jams, 3 jams, and they found that um, the people are more likely to buy something when the selections were reduced.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more selective.
Mm-hmm.
Like how in and like going back to how the brain works,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
have 20 options to play.
Right.
It, the activation of
Sure.
thought is less activated, so it's further from
Sure.
activation. But if I have three, the activation now closer.
Yep. Well, same thing in the game. So this is where we ask players questions based on what they see and what their options and their choices are. We don't have to gather 10 choices from them or 8 choices or 5 choices. It could be 2 or 3 choices. Depends on where you are on the pitch, what the situation is, and making an informed decision based on those 2, 3, or 4 choices, 4 options, excuse me, is ultimately what you want a player to do. Is what is the best solution? What is the best choice?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
had
and
a we had a situation today that one of my very creative players who played in Holland last year uh, with a pro team. He was playing in that league with all the top Dutch teams, with Ajax and with PSV Eindhoven and Utrecht, and he was U18, yeah, playing with them, and he had just turned 18 or U19, excuse me, and technical player, of course, but able to process information. So the winning goal in the match today came where the ball was served from the left wing. He was coming into the box. He was at the 6 yard line, 6 yard mark, and the ball was delivered away from the goal. And the center back closed him off. And as the ball came to him, he scanned behind him, again, taking that information piece. And as the ball came, he flicked it behind him to a wide open winger who tapped it in. And so his information was, the choices were hold the ball, maybe spin and finish, or lay it off for a player maybe at the top of the box, right? But because he's used to taking multiple looks, he's our biggest looker, takes the most scans. He saw the third option, which was the best option, and game was over.
yeah,
So that would be the example of what your choices are and making the best decision.
yeah, because players who have very strong references in their brain are better guided than players who have very little references in their brain. And like we said before, coach's job is to top down guide the players' process in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes like coaches use tools like, okay, this is our team model. Based on our team model, this is how it guides the player's decision, or these are the tactical principles or the team intention. So then
Mm-hmm.
these are the glasses the player has to view the games through.
Mm-hmm.
And I think these are very powerful tools for coaches to help these players have better selective perception. because like we said, 20 options to 3 options, it makes a big difference. And I think there was another study, I forget who did it, but the player who sees so like 100 different things is like have players who are better deciders, uh, know what they're looking for, and they have
Mm-hmm.
more less eye movement, so they know what they're looking for. So the quality of their scanning is of a top level. But the players who have very little game insight have more eye movement because they're very confused and they don't know what they're looking for. But then how can we stabilize this eye movement? Because as you know, if I move very quickly, this
Mm-hmm.
creates a saccade.
Mm-hmm.
And during the saccade, you don't see anything, only when the eyes are stopped. And then when the eyes are stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So then these as these tactical principles and team intentions could potentially be a very powerful tool for these players who have this eye movement problem. So now we stabilize their eye movement. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's relevant. So the first player you described is filtering data and information, and the 5 to 75 options are unnecessary. Those are not the ones that that's extra. That's like the fat on an animal, cutting away, and they're looking at where the lean meat is in their decision, their choices. The rest of them are looking at everything, which is too slow, overload of information, and as a result, their choices and their decisions are often not as sharp or as good. Yep.
Yeah. No, yeah, no, I'm very interested and looking forward to reading the book. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot more things to discuss. This has been a very high quality conversation, and I think coaches who do watch this will get a lot of benefit out of it um, throughout the entire hour. So I thank you a lot, TJ, for taking the time to speak with me. And we could go on for hours and hours and hours, but I know it's late over there on the East Coast, and I want you to get your rest because tomorrow the players need you again.
Thank you. I just want to leave you with this part is that you're offering a very important platform for everyone that is watching, that sees this program, and that will watch it in the future, because I'm sure there'll be other opportunities for folks once you have it on. And we really need young people like you that are innovative, that are inquisitive, that are passionate, that have a wide open lens to shine the light on these areas that are really the differential. They're small but important giant pieces that will change the game in this country and rapidly improve the quality of our American player and overall importance. So I want to commend you, but I also want to also give you a responsibility, as I'm twice or more your age, and that you're the one that has the mic now, and you're the one in the future that we need you to continue to talk about this and help grow the game for many, many years to come. All right.
Appreciate those kinds words, TJ, and hopefully I can make a biggest impact as you have in the football world. So I admire you a lot in all the work that you've done, and hopefully I could continue in your footsteps and hopefully also do similar work as you. Um, Last question, TJ. How was this conversation for you?
Enjoyable, very, very enjoyable. It's where where I'm moving into the spaces of leadership and training. It's massively enjoyable. The I have a project right now that we'll find out about in the next couple of weeks, which is in Senegal. The prime minister and the sport minister of Senegal have a proposal for me to go to Senegal during Thanksgiving and do 4 coaching courses on vision training for the Senegalese coaches,
Wow.
and and 2 leadership courses for admins and leaders in Senegal. And my latest conversation yesterday with the folks putting this together is that it looks very positive and optimistic. So if the Senegalese Football Federation, the people start incorporating vision training, the football there is already darn good.
Mm.
And I'm excited about that opportunity. But more importantly, I would be very excited that if in America we began to intentionally add these ideas and make it a foundation of our training.
Mm. Wow, that's incredible. It's a fantastic opportunity, and hopefully we can speak after you come back. And I'd be very, very interested in hearing how it went over there in Senegal, because different culture, different type of thinkers, but we all play the same sport. So how do we take on these concepts because we all want to improve the players and
Exactly.
grow the game in our own country. So no, that's incredible.
Yeah. So fingers crossed it'll work out. And then if it does, yeah, we'll come back as we get closer to the launch of the book in February. That'd be great.
Fantastic. Well, no, I appreciate this conversation, TJ. It was very beneficial, not only for myself, but just to put this for everyone to see. I'm very excited to hear the feedback that we get on this conversation. And we even covered topics that I didn't even expect to cover. So those were just bonuses. So
Awesome.
fantastic job, TJ. Thank you for all the knowledge, and looking forward to speaking with you very soon. Good luck with everything, and congratulations on the book.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, TJ.
Take care. Bye-bye.